Good evening. I'll call the meeting to order of the Milton School Building Committee. It's December 16th, 2024 at 7:04 p.m. As we start each meeting, I'll start with just roll call attendance. John Cohen.
Here.
Mark Loring.
Here.
Scott Tereshak. Here. And then online we have Tim Lombard. They're both to be in person too.
Correct, present.
Thank you. Carrie Hurley.
Present.
Selena Miranda.
Present.
And Aqua Abong.
Present.
Perfect, thank you. So second thing on the agenda, as we do each week, is citizen speak. We reserve the first 15 minutes of the meeting for any citizens that would like to speak. We ask that you limit your commentary to 3 minutes, and please state your name and address. And the first one we have up is Ada Rose Marin. Ada, you're recognized.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you. Just name and address to Ada.
Okay. Yep, Ada Rosemarin. Yep, Ada Rosemarin, 32 Columbine Road. Hello, everyone. I just came to say congratulations and thank you. Congratulations on the invitation into the MSBA funding program for school buildings. 5th time was a charm. Thank you for your persistence in making the case about the need to address severe overcrowding in the Milton Public Schools. Your ability to stay on multiple tracks to pursue different options that became available over your years of work together has paid off. There are bound to be more forks in the road before this school is finally built, but your team has the needed skill set, is focused on addressing challenges, and you have strong leadership with Chair Sean O'Rourke and Vice Chair Mark Loring. Milton is in good hands with you all. Thank you for your hard work over these past 6 years. We appreciate all you've done to reach this moment and recognize the work you have ahead. Milton will be a better place with your efforts, and our kids will be the beneficiaries. Thanks again, and keep up the good work.
Thank you, Ada. Nobody in person, and see if anybody else raises their hand. Give that a minute. All right, moving forward. Agenda item number 3 is approval of past meeting minutes. Last meeting was last week, Monday, December 9th, 2024. It was in everybody's packets, so just pause and see if anybody has any edits or comments to last week's meeting minutes.
Yeah, the camera's off. Do you see there's a check here that?
Yeah, so. Make a motion to approve meeting minutes for Monday, December 9th, 2024.
Second.
Second by Carrie. Any discussion? Hearing none. Roll call vote. John Cohen.
Yes.
Mark Loring.
Yes.
Scott Tereshak. Okay. Carrie Hurley.
Yes.
Selena Miranda.
Yes.
Tim Lombard.
Abstain.
Aqua Abong.
Yes.
And Sean O'Rourke, yes. All right. Item 4A, MSBA updates. We got a couple things under there. First is to review and discuss the MSBA board meeting. So I'm sure as everybody's aware at this point, we had a formal invitation to the eligibility period for MSBA that was extended to us last Friday. Superintendent Burrows attended that meeting. You want to just give it? I wasn't able to attend, so we can just give it.
Yeah, it was great. We had the opportunity to just thank the board and everyone in MSBA for allowing us into the eligibility period. There were a number of other districts present too, and each superintendent or sometimes the mayor of the city that was coming into MSBA shared just a brief thank you. And since that time, we've been communicating back and forth with the MSBA, trying to understand a little bit more based on where we are and the work that we've already done. How does that situate us? And I think, as you all know, it's fairly lockstep in some ways, but it seems like the capacity we've built over the years is going to be huge in going through this process. So it's been exciting just to learn more and kind of figure out what we'll be doing. The eligibility period begins May 1st. And so there's some work that we can do before May 1st, but there's some that we also have to follow the MSBA timeline. And I think there'll be a lot of learning that we do in the next couple of weeks related to that.
Yeah. Any questions just on the meeting overall from anybody? Look, I'm nothing to suppose we have to work on.
Exciting.
It is.
Exciting.
All right, so leading into that, now that we've been invited in, there's, as we discussed last week's meeting, there's a number of things that are gonna be coming up. So in preparation for the invitation that's on May 1st, we'll essentially enter into what's called Module 1 for MSBA, which is their eligibility.
Yeah. Eligibility and feasibility is the next one.
Yep. So with that, essentially, do you want to, do you guys have any of the, I can pull it up, just to kind of walk through it. Actually, on the MSBA.
The bottom of the letter, you know, I thought that, right.
Yep. So, yeah, perfect. So within module 1, there are a number of marks that we have to hit along the way. So the first one is initial compliance certification, due 30 days out. Essentially with that, it's a form that MSBA offers that basically requires 3 signatures. So that one should be an easy one to hit on the first 30 days. 30 days later, or 60 days from when we started, we have to form a school building committee. So as we discussed at last week's meeting, there's certain roster positions that MSBA requires that I think Mark thought himself right. There are certain MSBA roles that we have to fill. So the previous formation of the school building committee was a warrant article that was authored by the school committee in February 2019. So we will not be offering that as an article because it was previously authored by the school committee. We're going to have the school committee author the article to augment this committee. So essentially the role of it is to keep this committee as is and then just augment it with additional staff members to fill out the roles. So if you watch school committee meeting on Wednesday night, you'll see the draft of what they're proposing for that, and we'll do that. And then, as we walk through, there are additional things in there that are going to require input from the district, educational profile questionnaire, online enrollment projections. So the enrollment that we were using previously, this is a keynote of, we determined what the enrollment was when we were doing the feasibility study with Arrow Street. We told them size of school for this size, size of preschool for this size. MSBA will walk through and do an enrollment on their own, and that will be the baseline for what we're going to use as we get through eligibility into feasibility design. The maintenance and capital planning information that one takes a while. There's a lot that goes into that. We're going to lean on Tom McCarthy a lot for some of that. And basically what they want to see are what your assets are, how you maintain them, so they know that the future money that they're going to put in there is going to be well taken care of. It's not like we're just going to let it fall apart. The second to last one is there's local vote authorization for essentially a feasibility study. And we're going to talk about the warrant article that we'll be proposing for funding of that feasibility study. So that one, even though they give you 270 days, we're going to hope to get ahead of that by next February and have it completed and done. So while module 1 gives you a 270-day window for the overall project, I think we're going to be progressing through it fairly quickly. My understanding of the May 1 invitation from MSBA is they do that to align it with the town meetings that the town has. So we have our annual town meeting typically in May. So they look to have the invitation on May 1st. So it's a lot of me talking. I'll open it up, see if anybody has questions or anything like that in regards to, module 1. It's on line 2. It's like,
Presumably you would be sworn back in then, because it would be technically the formation of a new committee.
yeah, so, no, I don't think, so you're talking sworn in by the town clerk, like
Yeah.
we were originally?
Correct.
I think the original members would be fine. I think the new members would have to be sworn.
I see.
If they want to do it a Saul again, I'm fine with that too.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be like the last time we did it and they were assigned by the moderator.
So I think, I don't know yet.
It depends on the way we construct the warrant, or I think the way we're doing it is adding onto the existing school building committee. It's not reform, we already have a school building
Yeah.
committee, so it's editing the existing one versus creating a new.
Yeah, yeah, and like I said, I don't have the details of the specifics on it right now. It's all, the school committee is working on that right now. They're gonna be talking about that Wednesday night when they meet in anticipation. They're gonna take a vote on it too.
Cause I just, reading initially, they're pretty rigid about their
Oh, yeah. the roles.
MSBA, yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
Yeah, that, so
That
the
certain people are required.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
so the,
I'll be on it, Nick will be on it, right?
yeah, so
And they even mention, local rules and regulations and following them and
correct.
such, yeah.
Aqua, you got your hand up. You recognize, sir.
Thank you. Are there anything, it seems like we've worked on this for 5 years. Is there anything we can pull from our previous work that could help facilitate or move the process any faster? I know you're already talking about the committees and all that. Has that been identified, or is that something we will discuss later on in the meeting?
So that will be, some of the discussions we're gonna have with MSBA as we start engaging with them. Yeah, we were just invited on Friday, so we're trying not to overwhelm them too much right now, but I think internally within the town right now, we're working to kind of align everything so we hit the ground running. You know what I mean? Most communities don't already have a school building committee formed, right? They don't have the work we've already done. So I think some of the work we've already done, it will get redone again, which will be good because it's more, it'll essentially provide a pressure test that I think some citizens were looking for that. And then, yeah, we have to go back and there'll be some redundant things that we have to do. So we have to form a team again. So similar process of interviewing OPMs and selecting an OPM, we'll be doing that. 3 of us, or there are 3 representatives that will sit on a 15-member board on the designer selection committee that will, again, hear interviews for architects and engineers and, weigh in on which one we want. And that essentially gets into module 2. But as we get through that, there's no harm feeding in some of the work that we've already done, our concepts there, to help educate whoever we bring on the team to, again, help them hit the ground running too. Hope that answers what you're looking for.
I did see too, I looked up and, in 2023, in the invite stage, Needham and South Hadley were, approved for feasibility in October. So, and there were only 2 that did that. So that, to give us an idea of what's an aggressive schedule, us being approved for feasibility by this October would be, I've reached out to them and I'm gonna talk to somebody over there to see what they did, you know what I mean? Cause that was a quick turnaround,
Okay.
those 2.
Yeah, so when you say you're gonna reach out to those school buildings.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, I mean,
See what they did, because like I said, they
Yep.
were of the 19, only 2 of them made it, and it was Needham and South Hadley.
Okay.
And Needham actually had the same date as us. They had a May 1 commencement date, so they were exactly the same.
and so Aqua, does that answer your question? Just making sure.
Yes, it does. Thank you very much.
Any other questions on feasibility studies or anything with module 1? James, can you bring the agenda back up? Sorry about that. So the other one, PMA was kind enough to kind of run through essentially a proposed schedule for us as we enter into MSBA, just to give everybody an overview of, what this process module by module is going to look like for us. Sean, might I turn it over to you to dive into it?
Can I share a screen or do you need to?
I'm gonna make you always deny it, but I'm gonna make you a panelist.
It's gonna be a little hard to read, so if I can read it, I might have a little easier time with it.
So we just put together a schedule for the MSBA process. I have the feasibility starting today. That's gonna have to get pushed out until that May 1st date. I put in the 270 days so that we can do better than that. I think the town should be able to not use all of that time. That's the limit, and I think most towns do it in a shorter time period. So maybe that September 8th, finishing that would be the correct time. So through that process, you just had it on the screen, all the different things you're going to spell out, and then you're going to get into OPM selection. So assuming that you're going to start that in the fall, you'll do an OPM selection, you'll do designer selection, and then you'll start with their module, the feasibility module, which the first phase of that is the preliminary design program. And then we've spelled out the preliminary design program here, the preferred schematic report program. We have some items in here for permitting and some other stuff, some other items that we do early on in the process. Finishing up with your schematic design, and then ultimately the project funding. So if you get in to the MSBA and get them approved and start your OPM selection in September of 2025, we're looking at project funding sometime winter of 2028.
And when you say project funding, you mean the vote for debt exclusion?
Vote for debt exclusion, full project funding, right? Okay. That's kind of a standard timeline with the MSBA. Obviously, some of this will have to change because of MSBA board dates, depending on we have to align it because this far out, they haven't even set their board dates for that. Also, town meeting, if you're going to have one in April or May, do you target that, or do you do a special in the winter as soon as possible? So those are all down the road discussions that the committee's going to have.
And they even stated in their letter that the projects will go from budget shall be no sooner than July 1st, 2027. So that's right even in their letter.
Right. So yeah, you're not going to be able to, well, you can actually go for town funding before that if you want, but
Right.
typically the project funding agreement will set your budget, and oftentimes towns decide to forego the vote until the MSBA signs off on that project scope and budget. But it's a, this is up on the shared drive for anyone that wants to see
Yeah,
it.
the same place. Yep.
I will update this as well and rerun it with the May 1st date, just to show you kind of I guess an accelerated and then a best case scenario.
Oh, that's not May 1st. What you
No, I
said?
have it as Friday.
Oh, okay.
When they select you, I didn't
Okay.
realize they're going to make you,
Okay.
at the time when I was doing it today, I
Yeah.
didn't realize they're going to make you wait 5 months.
Yep. Yep.
But I also do believe you can do it faster than the 270 days. So we can kind of use this as an early schedule, use the other one as a later schedule. And then as we have further discussions with the MSBA, try to figure out what's the best fit and what we think we can actually achieve.
How does that compare to where we are today?
So right now we're basically at the end of SD. So we would be submitting right now to the MSBA with our SD package, or we would have done that a month ago, or when the SD package was ready back in October. And that submission right now is scheduled for mid-November 2027.
And ours, what we've done so far will greatly help us.
Yeah, It should, I mean, it's not gonna hurt you for sure, but as everyone has said, and I think we'll keep reiterating, the MSBA is it's a process, you've gone through the website, you've seen everything, they're gonna make you, in my understanding, it's gonna make you tick all the boxes, so.
Yep.
It would be good once we get rolling and once they kick off the project and you have conversation with them to ask if there's any way that we can, if there's anything we can do with the information we already have. I suspect they're going to make you do your full submissions on the PDP and then the PSR and go through your site selections and show them the due diligence you've done, document that for the state level.
Plus, we're working with their design, a new designer at that point, right? I mean, one assigned by them or one of their list.
Yeah, well, so the way the designer selection process works, yeah, so it's technically you go through their designer selection panel. This committee will have 3 votes on that panel, and I believe they have about 15 others. 12,
15 total.
15 total, okay. So you'll go and you'll interview with the MSBA designers who you've shortlisted, and then you'll do an initial round of interviews or initial round of review of the submissions, and then you'll do a shortlist. You'll decide with the MSBA who you're going to shortlist, and then they'll have the actual interviews. And you will be allowed to speak and tell them who you like, why you like them, and ultimately it'll be the majority vote of that committee of which designer. In the past and historically, we've been able to kind of coach towns and to make sure they get who they want, and we've had a pretty good success in doing that. I don't think we've ever had a town that got assigned someone that wasn't their number one choice. It's been close in some votes, but I think the MSBA listens, and as long as you present to them why you want to go with the designer, they're usually pretty okay with voting in your way. But that's still a ways down the road. So it's not to say you're going to have a new designer. You could have the same designer, you could have a new designer. It just depends at that
Arrow
point in
Street,
time.
so we could stay with Arrow Street.
You'd have to, my understanding is you would have to interview them, they'd have to go through the designer selection process, and they would have to be voted and approved by that designer selection panel. But assuming that they do that, then yes, you could continue with the same design. Yes, and the other thing too, if they have capacity to do the work as well, things change over time, and it depends on how busy they get, and they're not going to keep a slot open for a year and a half while they wait. But if the time comes and they have the ability,
They're open at the time.
if they're open at the time, I would hope that they would pursue the project.
Yep.
And that goes the same with the OPM. You're going to have to, my understanding is you're going to have to go through their process, and which is less rigid than the designer selection panel. There is no OPM selection panel. You interview and you vote on who you want for an OPM, and then that OPM goes in front of their MSBA board for approval. But it's not it's at that point, you sit in front of them, you tell them, here's our capacity, here's what we're doing, here's why the town will explain why they liked you.
And I only ask about Arrow Street because my understanding was you're on the list, but they're not on the list. Like the approved list of designers for MSBA. No,
I think they've done it.
Oh, they are.
Yeah, I think they've done it,
okay,
yeah.
okay. I thought I saw, okay.
Yeah, I was under the impression that everyone we shortlisted was on the list.
Okay.
Specifically for that reason that we were Sean, I think you said we were always pursuing the dual track, right?
Right. But, so the process that we did for selection on our own, right, we mirrored MSBA for the language in the advertisements, the RFPs and stuff like that. The process we went through, it just wasn't an open panel for MSBA to sit on. So this time, where before, so we're gonna go through that same exact process to onboard an OPM, right? So there's gonna be a number of submittals. They're gonna come and give presentations. There'll be Q&A. We'll go through that. And similar to how we voted last time, I think we did a hierarchy of 1, 2, 3, and whoever got the most one votes won. We'll then, so we're allowed to do that for the OPM. The designer end of it, we only have 3 votes out of the 12. So, we'll figure out who sits on that committee, and then participate in there and see. But the reality is there's gonna be a whole nother group of architects that are gonna be interested in doing this. Arrow Street may or may not be one of them. If they are one of them, then it gives an opportunity for us to do it. But I still think they're gonna have to come through, and again, because MSBA is so rigid, run through all the options, relook at sites, relook at augmenting schools, and stuff like that. And, if they come to the same conclusion, or we look at different options route of it, I mean, that's essentially why the schedule gets so long, is we're gonna go back and kind of review all this stuff all over again. And basically by doing that, like I said, it's re-pressure testing the work we've already done. So again, in the hopes of that too, not only is it good that we're getting, funding from MSBA, it will alleviate probably, hopefully, some of the concerns of people thinking that, we've kind of run road a couple times on our own. So yeah, it'll be good.
Those early conversations with the MSBA are very important to frame the project as well, to let them know, why you're building. It's not that the buildings are past their useful life, it's overcrowding, and then really be honest about what you want to investigate as a program, because once they fill out the feasibility agreement and they do the enrollment study and all of that, you are required to study everything that they put in that, and because that's what you told them you wanted to. So oftentimes districts will go in and put a whole bunch of different options, multiple different sites, multiple different grade configurations, which is
So they're open.
great. So you're open, but then when you get to the PDP, you have to study 25 different options. You have to have costs associated with those options. You have to explain them and do narratives and things like that. So it becomes a lot more work, where if you have a more narrow view on what you want, talking through that with the MSB, and then they may be able to guide you to how to make it maybe a little bit more open, but because you don't want to be too rigid. To your point, you want to stay open and have some flexibility, but you do not want to have to do 25 or 30 different options in a PDP submission.
I did see from the feasibility study reports that come out when they're invited in that towns had options. They showed that they still had options. You could see that.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing for me is on the invitation letter, when we got it, it says a new additional elementary school, or they also list the program that we're doing, a middle school, 7th and 8th with preschool. So that's still being there. It's acknowledgement from them of, we know you've done some work already. We want you to kind of keep going with that and look at it as one of your options, but still look at be open to other things. And they've enunciated that on multiple calls, which is good.
Yes, so as part of the submission, just based on that, they want to see probably an ad reno of one of the existing sites. If it can support it, or if it can't, they're going to show you, they're going to want to show how it can't support it. Sure. And then also they're going to want to see an elementary school on the new site and a middle school on the new site, and then any different enrollment options you have. They'll want to see that on each of the sites that you've chosen.
And I should ask this too, because this is in the invitation letter. I'm still digesting it. The invitation for the Cunningham Elementary School is for a continued co-location with the Collycott Elementary School, 4 grades, pre-K through 5, and is for the continued co-location. So are they expecting pre-K through 5 to stay at Cunningham?
Don't know.
You know what I mean? But if you
No,
read that,
if you're doing true black and white legal language.
I just saying,
No,
yeah.
Yeah, but they're saying that either an additional elementary school, the feasibility study to examine an additional school.
Granted, but the invitation is for the continued co-location with Collycott
they're assuming
Elementary
it doesn't
School of
change.
grades. Those grades gotta stay there.
That's-
We can
yeah,
add
I
new
think it
ones,
was-
but when
yeah.
we're done, grades PK through 5 is still at Cunningham.
You can change, it's a whole process, but you can
Okay,
change
okay.
enrollments, you can change grades, but
Just saying it, because that's how it's.
I think the
stated.
assumption is that school isn't being knocked down, or that school.
No,
is-
not down, but that they're staying there.
Well, yeah, some
Anyway.
kids are saying that, yeah.
Just mention.
This will be part of those early conversations in that
Yeah.
first 270-day period between the school department and the MSBA about talking about, okay, what's the plan here? What's your plan for your existing schools? Who's in your existing schools? And they're gonna look at all the enrollment data, they're gonna look at growth and all that. And then come up with the different enrollment numbers and different enrollment options.
I know the letter stated that if you move too quickly and if you don't follow our guidance, the funding won't be there essentially, which is like so I guess I'm wondering, in terms of, you were mentioning shortening the eligibility period. Do you have to check with MSBA at every little piece here to see, like, am I on track or not? Or how will that work in terms of the MSBA kind of communicating, you guys look like you're on track, or, how did you end up there?
Yeah, and there'll be, in this process that you're going to now is usually before OPMs get involved. We know tangentially how it works because we know what the output is. But it's constant communication between the school district and the MSBA. You'll have a project manager, they'll be assigned, you'll talk about, different options, and then you'll lay out a schedule to hit it. And they'll walk you through it, they'll hold your hand, they'll make sure you hit all the dates, they'll make sure you, they don't want this to fail. They want you to go through the process, they want you to check all the boxes, and they want you to move to the next step, and they'll help you do that. Okay.
What about the comments? What's your experience with that? Just the comment about invitation to the project scope and budget no sooner than July 1st of 2027. Say we were ready in September of 2026. Does that mean we're just sitting in a waiting pattern? Does that have to do with how they provide their funding, or?
I think that's exactly right. I think,
When they're making the funding available for
Yes.
July 1st of 2027.
I think it's a grant program, so they're trying to make sure that they have enough money to continue to fund the grant. And so I believe that's why they put these timelines. I mean,
Even
and
if we go faster for the next year and a half.
yeah, I mean, the one thing is you can ask them, they're open and they'll have conversations with you, but that's what, without a change of that and without which would probably take director level approval. I would assume that that's the earliest that they would enter you to project scope and budget.
You always ask for partial funding to get going.
Well, but you may be able to get going. It's just they won't fund you until the project scope and budget. So there may be
essentially
an
you do it at
opportunity.
risk.
You may be able to do it at risk without, and then with the risk is that if they don't grant you the project funding agreement or something happens, then you're gonna be out whatever you put in prior to that happening.
And that ties in to a question I had is, previously when we were kind of going on the other path, we were looking at almost two design packages, the roadway site package first and then the building package after. I'm assuming with MSBA, they wouldn't allow that type of procurement right up front, or would they just have do everything at once?
Meaning after the project funding agreement or prior to that?
After.
Oh, no, we've done it on multiple MSB
Okay.
projects, no problem.
After what stage?
So once the project funding agreement's in place, the methodology of construction and how you bid it, and your bid strategies, things that they've been supportive. Is you just let them know what you're doing, how you plan to do it. And it's,
Project funding is this July date.
yes, so that sets your total project budget. They will not give, you can increase the budget if you need to later on, but the MSBA will likely never give more money than the grant that they tell you you're going to give it that date. That's when they set their funding for the year, and that's making sure they have enough money to fund all the projects that are entering at that time.
What is their margin of error for towns that, I mean, they're setting aside a certain amount of money, inviting a certain number of districts in. Probably there's some assumption they make that 80% of these are gonna get funded, or I know like some go through this process and then don't get funded. So
I think for their budgeting, they're assuming that they're all gonna,
are
they have to
Okay.
assume that they're all gonna pass.
Okay,
And then whatever money doesn't get spent either gets rolled into, they'll just get rolled into the next chunk, and they'll give it out to the next community that comes asking for it.
Or less.
Well,
If they go over, then that next round of approvals probably is less.
That's why it varies. It's not,
Yeah.
they don't let in X amount every year. It changes year by year based on tax collections and what they have available.
Yeah.
But that's at that time for project funding agreement. That's where they're gonna lock in your reimbursement rate. That's gonna lock in your grant, and that's, and then you go to, typically that's when you go and get the vote from the town. Sometimes you do it early, usually if there's a presidential election right before, towns have done that because there's more people that come to the ballot, but that's more of a strategy from the committee about how you want to hear it. If it's a non-presidential year, which this doesn't seem to be, it would likely be you get the project funding agreement and then you present it to the town for a vote.
So that's November 27th. The November election would be the soonest after the July 1st date. Yeah.
Well, you gotta go to town meeting first, right, to get it approved to go on the ballot, is that correct? So you might have to have a.
Yeah, whatever.
special town meeting.
We close it.
Right.
We're talking winter 20.
Right, like we're doing now,
Yeah,
special town.
yeah.
Yeah.
Baby steps right now.
Yeah.
Module.
Module one.
Module one.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff, but just like,
Can I
that's,
pick out the color of the paint?
yes.
Yeah. Yeah, there's enough in module one.
Yeah, I mean, the good thing is, it's good news, honestly, for everybody in the town, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
It's, I know there was heartache or concern with the overall project budget when we announced it at 173 million. I was one of them, you know what I mean? It was a lot of money. I think everybody was kind of shocked by what that was, but essentially that's what constructions of schools are costing these days. Like when we look at MSBA's data. The good thing now is we can lessen some of that through getting this reimbursement for eligible costs. So it's not a 45% reimbursement on the total project, 45% of eligible costs. And I keep saying that so people understand it's going to get diluted down. But you know, it's an additional funding source. It provides, you know, a level of oversight I think some people want to see on this project and stuff like that from a state agency. So it's a good thing there. And then, you know, for me, this is a big step forward for us, you know, like we've been together, we're coming up on 6 years and, you know, we've got land for it now. We've got, you know, a program that we think's right, that we're going to run through again. And now essentially we have partial funding, you know, from a state agency. So we're moving ahead and, you know what I mean? So I'm excited.
It's gonna be a lot of work, Peter.
I'm feeling it
Mhm.
in a good way. It's nice to see a pathway. Yeah, that's exciting.
Reminds me of when I would land a contract and I'd go home and my wife would say, why aren't you ecstatic? Now I gotta do it. The salesman's hat was off and now the contractor's hat was on, you know, and that's where we are. I mean,
Yep.
great news, but
Now it's time to work.
Yeah.
But not quite yet, May 1st, but
Yeah.
there's some things you can do in advance of that for sure.
Yeah.
Getting yourself ready for that process.
Yeah, just get a head start on it. And that's, you know, I think everybody's on board to do that. So, you know, I mean, the 270-day mark, we're not waiting for that, you know, 269-day running around trying to get all our paperwork in. We're going to be way ahead of that. So.
just like right now, I think, you know, we on the school building, whatever, the school building committee, and they can be doing all these things. Granted, they say no, what do they say? You can't pre-submit, but you can have everything
Ready.
lined up. Yeah.
Any other questions or comments on that agenda item? James, you might pull up the agenda item. All right, now I can share my screen. So the agenda item 4B is review revised warrant articles based on MSBA board meetings. So as we talked about at our last meeting, as I mentioned earlier, we were going to have 2 warrant articles from school building committee, one augmenting the roster of us to align with MSBA. School committee has now taken that on, so they'll be talking about that and going through it on Wednesday night. So if you're interested, tune in. The other one that we have is we've talked about funding for a feasibility study. So again, for that 270 days, that one had a 270-day mark on it. We can get that done fairly quickly. So we worked with PMA, looked at what we thought would be a reasonable amount of money for a feasibility study. So I'll pull up the article. Nick sent it to me this afternoon. I forwarded it to everybody kind of later today, just so you can see, but it's similar to the other funding articles that we've had. So just give me 1 second. Yeah, sorry. Thanks, James. So for this, what it does is it basically utilizes the language, similar to what we're going to find with MSBA. Any of these articles that we have to do, they give you draft language. With, there you go. They give the draft language with fill in the blank here, program, address, town, stuff like that, and then amount. So we worked with PMA, you know, the anticipation of $1.5 million for the feasibility study, we think is fair. That will basically go to funding the project team once we get them formed in module 2. So leave it open to see if anybody has any questions or comments regarding this article.
How is the dollar amount arrived at?
So what we did is, so at our last meeting, I showed everybody the spreadsheet that MSBA has, and we went through that, looked at similar programs that were there and dollar values.
So I wasn't.
Yeah. So if you go to MSBA's website, they have their data from all the way back like 10, 15 years. Obviously not using the funding, not using the basis of 15 years ago because we'd be in trouble. But
Yeah.
So working with Sean and Seamus, we've looked at it and basically, you know, their recommendation was roughly about that.
Okay.
Thank you. Yep.
And that's the, it says feasibility study, so that takes us through modules 1, 2, and 3.
I believe so, yeah.
I don't remember what the modules are, but they bring you up to be a project funding agreement. Yeah.
Three's the feasibility study, so this is the money for that feasibility study at that stage. Right.
Yeah, bring it up to the vote, town vote.
Yes. So it goes to a feasibility study, then the schematic design is after the town vote.
No, schematic design before the town vote. This will bring it up to, it'll be
More
up
funding,
through schematic design.
feasibility before we got to a town vote.
Does that show funding the project after schematic design?
Yes, yeah, that's module 5. So
Feasibility and schematic design, if then they do that, and then you get the funding.
Isn't this funding that feasibility stage, that third module?
feasibility and schematic at
Both of
FSSD,
them.
yes.
Both of them, okay.
For the 1.5 million.
Yeah.
Okay.
So part of the language that we have in this too is obviously we want town council to look at it. I mean, this is our initial draft, as with anything. We recommend it up to the select board, it goes to the select board, town council reviews it and basically make sure we're covered for certain things there. So if we have to include schematic design as part of that, for there, we can include that.
They, again, following their, dotting their i's and crossing the t's, they said that exact same thing run by legal counsel, you know, town legal counsel.
They do that with a lot of stuff.
Huh?
They do that with a lot of stuff.
Oh, yeah, they do. It's great, it's a fantastic site, and we got everything.
Is that what they call it, feasibility study agreement?
Yeah.
That's what it calls it.
Yeah, so.
Actually, so the total contract amount for Arrow Street. So just because I was worried that this is not, but for the schematic design and study US Arrow Street to do is about $500,000.
475, yep.
Yeah, so, and not on top of that is the OPMP as well for that period of time. So,
Yeah,
1.5. I was worried 1.5 was.
wasn't enough.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we're not like cutting it too close that we're gonna need to kind of go back to town before we go back to town a third time.
Yeah.
And if you do even more recent, if you look at the existing towns, it's still not right.
Yeah, I mean, I know on Arrow Street, or we talked about the price that we were trying to get from that schematic was gonna be tight, because our budget was tight, right, so.
Well, it shows you the discount that Arrow Street kind of gave to us too for a lot of this work, with the hope of being able to recapture some of that on the other one. So Scott, if you go to the website here, for feasibility votes, this is basically the language in the bulletin that they give. That was, actually, that's the bulletin, I apologize. That was a sample from MSBA. Yeah. Feasibility vote, I believe this was it. So this is basically this is what I was saying. Insert stuff here. So basically, this is the template that we use for MSBA to come up with it, so sounds good. Okay. So language. Yeah, I mean, that's part of the good thing is, you know, what I mean, it's a framework that we're entered into, and we just kind of, follow along, so. Leave it open for everyone, just kind of review and take a look at it.
Are you looking for a motion to approve this?
I would entertain one.
I'll make a motion to approve the warrant, Article 20. As stated, to see if the town will vote to appropriate, borrow, or transfer from available funds an amount of money to be expended under the direction of the school building committee for a feasibility study of a middle school or elementary school project
Good. Okay.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion?
Can I just ask?
Yes, sir.
Which committee? Because under the direction of the school building committee, we have two of them now, right?
No,
No?
could just be one.
What's the one for the, MSBA?
That would
That's just
still be-
augmenting the existing committee.
This is the committee.
Oh, I see, okay, I didn't understand.
Any other questions, comments? No. Okay. I'll stop sharing and we'll go to a roll call vote. So John Cohen,
Yes,
Mark Warren,
Yes.
Tim Lombard,
Yes.
Scott Hershey,
Yes.
Carrie Hurley,
Yes.
Selena Miranda.
Yes.
Like I said, I think Aqua's dropped off, so he was on earlier, but, and then myself, yes, unanimous. Congratulations. Did you pull the agenda back up? Sorry. New business, 48-hour items. I don't know what that is.
In case something comes up before, after I post the agenda, but we need to talk about it at the meeting.
Oh, okay.
actually,
Matters are
no,
right.
okay, that's okay. No, you can't do that, but anyway.
All good. So item 6, future meeting dates, TBD. I think, you know, for this meeting, we are good for this year. And I mean, we've got the, you know, I don't believe there's gonna be any actions, warrant committee or anything like that between now and the end of the year. So if we want, we can schedule a date sometime in January that works for people. If you want to leave it TBD for now and kind of coordinate, you know, as it comes up, but
That might make sense, just
put one on the calendar.
You might say tentative, because don't we have the next board meeting, I think is January 13th, you might want to meet before that, we might want to meet before that.
The next select board meeting?
Yeah,
On the
I think
14th.
13th or is the 14th,
Yeah,
yeah, that's
Tuesday.
the next one.
Cool, that's reloading it.
I don't know, I'm just saying,
No,
whatever.
it'd probably be good.
Who knows what'll happen.
To Peter's point, to just put something on the calendar, so at least we're on the night before.
Whatever,
I'm fine with that. So,
tentative.
yeah, if you put January 13th. January 13th. Yep. 2025.
Oh, yeah.
And so last agenda item is item 7, adjournment. So entertain any motion to adjourn.
So moved?
No discussion, roll call vote, John Cohen,
Yes.
Mark Loring,
Yes.
Tim Lombard,
Yes.
Scott Hershey,
Yes.
Carrie Hurley,
Yes.
Selena Miranda,
Yes.
and Sean O'Rourke. Yes, thank you. Have a good year.